Hollywood has a way of choosing its next cultural obsession, and right now, that obsession is Pedro Pascal. Everywhere you look, whether it's blockbuster films, streaming series, red carpet appearances, or viral internet clips, Pedro is at the center of it all. He isn't just starring in 1 or 2 projects a year like most actors, he's headlining 4 or more, back to back, without slowing down. But here's the thing, Pascal's rise feels different. Traditionally, actors break through because of undeniable performances that silence critics and capture audiences on sheer talent alone. With Pedro, the story isn't quite the same. Yes, he's talented, but Hollywood seems to be pushing him into stardom for reasons that go far beyond acting ability. He's being marketed as the perfect package of modern masculinity, the rugged exterior of a traditional leading man, balanced with a soft, kind, approachable demeanor that feels refreshing in today's climate. Add in his playful, slightly awkward interviews, the endless memes about his charm, and his willingness to publicly embrace the internet's obsession with him, and suddenly, you have a cultural figure that checks every box Hollywood needs right now. The result is a carefully curated image, a man who seems sexy but safe, relatable but aspirational, serious when it matters, but always willing to laugh at himself. In many ways, Pedro Pascal is less an actor rising through the ranks and more a brand, an image designed to thrive in a world where social media and entertainment have completely merged. And while this strategy has catapulted him into superstardom, it also raises a larger question. Is Pedro Pascal truly Hollywood's most authentic leading man, or simply its most effective marketing product?
For many fans, Pedro Pascal looks like an overnight success, but the truth is, his journey to fame was anything but fast. Before he became Hollywood's favorite leading man, he spent nearly 20 years in complete obscurity. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Pedro was one of thousands of actors struggling to find work in Los Angeles. He picked up tiny guest spots on television shows, but none of them gave him steady recognition. In fact, for years, he was living off the residual checks from a single one-off TV appearance back in 1999. That small payout, just enough to cover rent or medical bills, literally kept him afloat. Without it, he admitted he might not have been able to stay in Hollywood at all. By the time he was in his mid-30s, Pedro was running out of options. While most actors who eventually break through usually see their big moment in their 20s, Pascal was already in his late 30s, still auditioning for background roles and wondering if it was time to give up on acting altogether. Living paycheck to paycheck, he was seriously considering other career paths. Then came the opportunity that would finally change everything. HBO's Game of Thrones was the most talked-about show on television, dominating pop culture in a way few series ever had. When Pedro Pascal landed the role of Oberyn Martell in Season 4, he knew it was his chance to finally be seen by millions of viewers around the world. It wasn't a long-term role. His character only appeared briefly before meeting one of the show's most shocking and brutal endings. But even with limited screen time, Pedro Pascal managed to turn a short-lived performance into a career-defining moment, one that would finally pull him out of the shadows and into the spotlight.
Pedro Pascal's short-lived but unforgettable role in Game of Thrones became the turning point of his career. For nearly 2 decades, he had been invisible in Hollywood, but in just a few episodes, audiences finally noticed him, and almost immediately, the industry began to take notice too. After the success of Game of Thrones, opportunities started pouring in. Casting directors suddenly saw him as more than just another struggling actor. They saw someone who could command attention, even in smaller roles. Within a few years, Pascal landed a wide range of characters that showcased his versatility. He played alongside Matt Damon in The Great Wall, stepped into the flashy, over-the-top world of Kingsman: The Golden Circle as a charming yet ruthless Secret Service agent, and then took on what many considered his next big break, Netflix's hit series Narcos. As DEA agent Javier Peña, Pascal got his first long-running television role with real weight behind it. Unlike his brief appearance in Game of Thrones, this was a character that carried an entire storyline across multiple seasons. The gritty, high-stakes drama of Narcos gave him the platform to show depth and consistency as a performer, something he had never been able to prove before. By this point, Pascal wasn't just a background face anymore. He was becoming a recognizable name in Hollywood, someone audiences remembered and wanted to see again. And while he wasn't quite at the level of A-list superstardom yet, it was clear that the momentum was finally building. What stood out most was his adaptability. Pedro could play villains, heroes, and everything in between, always adding charisma and unpredictability to his roles. Hollywood was beginning to realize it had discovered a rare kind of actor, one who could be dropped into almost any story and make it more compelling. If Narcos established Pedro Pascal as a serious actor, it was his next wave of roles that turned him into a global phenomenon. Disney's The Mandalorian became an instant cultural landmark, and though Pascal's face was often hidden behind a helmet, his presence and voice gave the character a quiet intensity that resonated with fans. Suddenly, he wasn't just a supporting figure, he was carrying one of the most important franchises in pop culture. From there, the momentum only grew. He appeared in Wonder Woman 1984, delivering a flamboyant and memorable performance as the villain Maxwell Lord, but it was HBO's The Last of Us that truly cemented his place at the very top. Playing Joel, a hardened survivor in a post-apocalyptic world, Pascal brought emotional weight and vulnerability to a role that could have easily been reduced to action cliches. Viewers saw not just a fighter, but a broken man protecting what little he had left, an image that connected deeply with audiences. But Pedro's rise wasn't just about his acting. At the same time, the internet completely fell in love with his personality. Clips of his awkward humor, his endearing interviews, and his genuine interactions with fans went viral. Memes crowned him the internet's daddy, and instead of brushing it off, Pedro leaned into it, smiling at the joke, playing along, and showing a self-awareness that made him even more beloved.
What Hollywood had on its hands was more than an actor. It was a cultural icon. His characters became instantly recognizable, but his off-screen presence was just as magnetic. In an era where an actor's personality can matter as much as their performances, Pedro Pascal had become a rare double threat, a star on screen and a phenomenon online. But with fame this intense, the tide always turns eventually. The same internet that built Pedro Pascal into a cultural icon also began to show signs of fatigue. Suddenly, the adoration that once seemed limitless started shifting into criticism. The phrase Pedro Pascal fatigue began appearing across social media. Fans who had once celebrated every interview, every viral clip, and every new project started questioning whether Hollywood was oversaturating his presence. 4 films a year, multiple series, constant red carpet appearances. It felt like Pedro was everywhere all at once. For some, the charm that once seemed effortless now felt like overexposure. And then there was the matter of his public image. Pedro had always leaned into being relatable, open, warm, and willing to poke fun at himself. But as his platform grew, so did the expectation for him to speak out on cultural and political issues. He voiced support for gender rights, commented on global conflicts, and didn't shy away from making his stance known. To some fans, this was refreshing, proof that he wasn't afraid to use his influence for causes he believed in, but to others it felt performative, as if his opinions were part of the brand rather than authentic personal beliefs.
This tension created a divide. Was Pedro Pascal truly the down-to-earth, genuine figure he appeared to be? Or was Hollywood shaping him into a carefully crafted symbol designed to thrive in today's social media-driven world? The cracks in his image weren't catastrophic, at least not yet, but they revealed an uncomfortable truth. When someone becomes this famous, every smile, every statement, every gesture is dissected under a microscope. And once doubt begins to creep in, even the most beloved stars can find themselves standing on shaky ground. Pedro Pascal now finds himself at a crossroads that every superstar eventually reaches. On one hand, he's at the peak of his career, juggling blockbuster franchises, prestige television, and endless magazine covers. His face, his voice, and even his memes dominate both Hollywood and the internet. For most actors, this level of fame would be the dream. But for Pedro, it could also be the beginning of a much bigger challenge. History has shown that the same machine that builds up celebrities can just as quickly tear them down. We've seen it happen time and time again. Stars who were everywhere all at once eventually hit a breaking point where the public decides they've had too much. Right now, Pedro is balancing on that edge. The pressure is relentless. He's expected to deliver flawless performances, maintain his relatable charm, and continue being the internet's favorite obsession, all while speaking out on issues that inevitably divide opinion. One wrong step, a poorly chosen role, a misinterpreted comment, or even just oversaturation could be enough to flip the narrative. The internet's love is powerful, but it's also
And yet, this is also where Pedro's strength lies. Unlike many celebrities, he hasn't tried to hide behind a perfect image. His awkwardness, his openness, and even his willingness to laugh at himself are part of what makes him so compelling. That authenticity, whether real or carefully cultivated, might be the very thing that protects him when the backlash comes. So the question isn't whether Pedro Pascal will remain famous. He will. The real question is how long he can balance being both Hollywood's leading man and the internet's favorite persona without the two worlds finally colliding. Because in the spotlight, the higher you rise, the more fragile the ground beneath you becomes.